President Cyril Ramaphosa has announced plans to convene a national convention. It's been scheduled for August the 15th, and its aim is to lay the groundwork for a national dialogue aimed at forming a new social compact. This will bring together government, business, labor and civil society as a way to address mounting political and economic pressure and build consensus on a shared national vision. The head of state says the national dialogue itself is not an event, but is rather a participatory process that unfolds in phases from local consultations and sectoral engagements to provincial and national gatherings. It's expected that the first national convention in August will be brought together for a second convention early next year. Business confidence has improved slightly. SACCI's BCI reading for May has come in at 115.8 index points. That's up by 0.9 index points on the previous month's figure. Positive sentiment was supported by a stronger rand, higher share prices on the JSE and better dollar prices for gold and platinum. While the month-on-month increase was marginal, on an annual basis the BCI is 8 index points higher. Stats SA has defended its methodology in determining employment in South Africa's informal sector. That's after Capitec CEO Gerrie Fourie commented that the country's high unemployment rate is inflated to some extent, as activity in the informal market is not fully accounted for in the National Statistical Services calculations. But Statistician General Risenga Maluleke says Stats SA's data on the informal economy aligns with requirements of the International Labour Organization, and that is reflected in the quarterly labor force survey that the organization produces. That data is collected from households and surveys, and the survey's labor market activities of individuals aged between 15 and 64 years. PanAfrican Resources says it achieved record gold production during the second half of its financial year. Output during the period is estimated at 112,000 ounces. That's a 32% jump on what it managed to produce in the first half. The upswing was largely due to the successful ramp-up at the miner's Mogale tailings retreatments operation. But despite this, the group has warned that it will likely fall short of its production guidance for the year. Total full-year output is expected to come in at around 197,000 ounces. This is a 6% increase on last year's production figure, but is lower than the 205,000 ounces the company had targeted for 2025. And that's as a result of delays in certain projects. The group's outlook, however, is more positive. It expects output of between 275 and 292,000 ounces in its next financial year. This would be a 40% surge on this year's production. Alongside the production update, PanAfrican Resources also announced its plans for a share buyback. The firm intends to purchase up to 200 million rand of its stock, and the program will start on the 17th of June. Further afield, US and Chinese officials agreed on a framework to put their trade truce back on track and resolve China's export restrictions on rare earth minerals and magnets. U.S. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick said at the conclusion of 2 days of intense negotiations in London. Here's more detail in this report.
The US and China have struck a deal on trade at talks in London. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick spoke to the media in the early hours of Wednesday after 2 days of intense negotiations. He said the deal fleshed out a provisional agreement reached last month in Geneva.
So the idea is we're going to go back and speak to President Trump and make sure he approves it. They're going to go back and speak to President Xi and make sure he approves it. And if that is approved, we will then implement the framework that we have worked hard over these last 2 days.
Lutnick said the new agreement put meat on the bones of the Geneva deal that had faltered over China's curbs on the export of critical rare earth minerals. Now Lutnick says those restrictions will be removed as a fundamental part of the new framework. He said that some recent US export restrictions would also be lifted. Chinese Vice Commerce Minister Li Chenggang also spoke to reporters. He confirmed that agreement had been reached and said both sides would now report back to national leaders. Markets gave the news a cautious welcome, with Asian stocks posting modest gains in Wednesday trade. Some analysts told Reuters they were waiting to see details of the deal before making a judgment.
And Elon Musk recently expressed regret over some posts he made about Donald Trump, admitting they went too far. He didn't specify which posts he was referring to, but acknowledged that some of his comments were excessive. Let's take a look for more detail.
Elon Musk says he regrets some of the posts he made last week about US President Donald Trump. The billionaire said Wednesday they went too far. Trump and Musk traded insults last week on social media. The Tesla and SpaceX CEO described the president's sweeping tax and spending bill as a disgusting abomination, sparking a fast-escalating exchange of barbs and threats. Trump said on Saturday their relationship was over, but he since stated he wouldn't have a problem if Musk called and wished him well.
And he wants to speak to me. I would think so. If I were him, I'd want to speak to me, and maybe he was already called. You'd have to ask him whether or not he's already called. But I'd have no problem with it.
Musk wrote on his social media platform X, "I regret some of my posts about President Donald Trump last week. They went too far." He did not say which specific posts he was talking about, though he has deleted several that were critical of Trump. One of those signalled support for impeaching the president. Sources close to Musk have said his anger has started to calm. They also believe he may want to repair his relationship with Trump. Tesla's Frankfurt traded shares were up around 2.5% Wednesday after Musk's online remarks.